Something that always gets me and I love about One Piece is perspective and the importance of perspective. And in this chapter, perspective matters. And we see the perspectives of Sabo, Wapol, the Gorosei, even Cobra in that moment and how dire the situation was. Oda was cooking in this chapter. If I had to explain exactly what happened in this chapter to someone else, they would not believe me. We saw Imu's ability for the most part. The Gorosei confirmed to have abilities, could be god fruits. We had Cobra's death and seeing how it took place. Sabo actually fought against Imu, and then Wapol put Vivi in his mouth. Yeah, that all happened. That all happened. That all happened. Let's take a ride on this perspective train and try to break down how I look at it, because again, that's the beauty of it. So many people read this chapter, and I guarantee we're all gonna have different perspectives, different conclusions, but we're gonna put our heads together and try to make sense of all this, because what? I said it last week that once Imu started walking up those stairs, Cobra's fate was sealed. Now, this is a flashback, so we know Cobra died. Well, I guess it was, okay, I'm not gonna lie. I was questioning Cobra's death, but he's dead. I believe he's dead. At this point, Imu knew that it was over for Cobra. That's why he showed himself. That's why it was like, okay. One of my favorite parts of the chapter is Cobra. He's, of course, sick and coughing, but he's still very brazen. Like, he is literally in the lion's den and poking the lion, where Imu had to check him and say, hey, don't ask me that. Cobra gave us some more context, providing some more exposition. It's like breaking the fourth wall, where Imu's saying, no, that's too much exposition, too early. I'm still a silhouette. What do you think? Where Cobra's talking about Imu, the name Imu, saying, well, wait, hold on. Imu sounds familiar, because one of the 20 kings, he's like, the audience isn't ready for that yet. This chapter is about your death. So that tells us Imu more than likely is one of the 20 kings, or sometimes in anime, one of the 20 kings took on the name Imu from someone that was one of the 20 kings. It's not confirmed and set in stone that this person is necessarily one of the 20 kings, but more than likely, or inspired by, at least bare minimum. That's what we can pull from that. Now, what Imu says about the D is interesting. The D clan I'm talking about, because he's saying that the D are basically a bunch of lost people that don't really know the meaning of their name. They're a bunch of people that rally around something that's not even tangible. They don't even know what it is, because more than likely the world government probably wiped out a generation of D clan members back then. And so the D that are left over, they're the people that are inheriting will that they don't even understand yet, but they can feel it. But we have some more to talk about the D clan and the D and what it means, because I believe Oda has definitively put a meaning on it. The definition doesn't matter. The meaning does. You understand what I'm saying? The meaning, which is more important than anything. Piggybacking off of what Imu's saying about the D, we gotta talk about the subscribe button, right? And the meaning of that. And if you're liking this video so far, do me a favor, click that button, drop a like. It certainly means a lot. That's the YouTube thing to do. Now, the One Piece thing to do is to talk about the D clan and what Imu's talking about in regards to Queen Lily. Because even though it's pretty clear, pretty damn confusing. He's saying that without the blunder of Queen Lily, and of course the scholars, because they were trying to investigate the information, researching it, and brought it to the forefront, the poneglyphs would not have been scattered. Huh? That's a huge leap. What do you mean? You're saying whatever Lily did, it says her incompetence led to the scattering of the poneglyphs. Now, I was talking with my friends. What could lead to scattering of poneglyphs? What power do we have? Well, we're saying, well, Kuma's power. It could scatter the poneglyphs all over. But then the question is, was all this a plan or a mistake? Which, more than likely, it was a plan. Lily had this plan all along, which tells me, yes, back then, the 20 kings, they came together to overthrow the ancient kingdom. But in the midst of all this, Queen Lily was working with members of the ancient kingdom. Scattering poneglyphs was part of the plan, and she was involved somehow. Now, with Lily being involved in the scattering of it, meaning multiple people were involved in regards to probably devil fruit powers, they covered it up so well that it looked like a blunder, like a mistake. But one of my favorite things from this chapter is the insinuation that Lily is not Imu, not Toki, but rather Zunisha. think about that. What if they think about what Oda said about Zunisha? Zunisha was forced to walk for 1,000 years after betraying, okay? It was betrayal that led to this. Lily did something like this, a huge blunder, and that could have been the punishment. The eyes, very similar. What if Zunisha is Queen Lily? And if Queen Lily was working with the sovereigns of back then, Momonosuke is going to be important and relevant, right? I wonder how the interaction would go with Vivi. These things are very important and very interesting, if I might add. My conclusion about this is that it was, of course, part of a larger plan. I've been saying for a long time that the scattering of the Poneglyphs, all the information that was spread around even after the Void Century, this was meant, I think this was foreseen by someone with the power of Madame Shirley, and they were warned. All this was a plan put in place because they knew this overthrow was coming, meaning if it wasn't Madame Shirley or someone saw the future, someone knew of what was coming, preferably Queen D. Lily. She knew that they were planning a coup, and so she warned them and she formulated a plan with them to make it look like a mistake, but to scatter and send out this information because more than anything, Imu wants to suppress information. More than anything. We knew the world government, that's what they wanted, but now seeing the will of Imu just in front of us is mind-blowing, but so fascinating at the same time, considering that Imu is probably one of the 20 kings. How did he or she rise to the top when no one was supposed to rise to the top? But for a lot of these celestial dragons, power, or what they perceive as absolute power, is all they want. So it doesn't matter if someone else is doing something else, they have everything they want. And Imu played on that, played on them, their wants, their needs, their greed. And so I'm a bit smarter than you, a bit more ambitious than you. I just throw you scraps of power, right? You're above the kings. Oh, they're greedy pigs. They're gonna accept that. Then I'm gonna rise to the top with my chosen few to serve me. We'll talk about the chosen few a little later. Secondly, why are the Gorosei just randomly carrying around guns? Why do they have blickies on them? Who were they planning to shoot? Or did they pick it up once they knew Cobra was coming to the room? That's the better explanation, because I don't know how many problems they've had personally in the past 800 years, assuming they've been alive that long. I'm gonna assume. Again, Cobra's plan or mission, I'm befuddled, because he walks in there and he has this information about a letter. Queen Lily, the D, and you're again in the lion's den poking the lion, and you wanted to walk out of there? Well, not walk, because he can't walk, but you wanted to get out of there? And it seemed like once they started somewhat antagonizing him, saying, okay, why did you say it? Tell us about this letter then. Go on. Now's your time to speak. We're giving you the floor. It clicked. Damn, maybe I did bite off more than I can chew, but maybe I can still get out of here? Delusional. Delusions, right? Reminds me of this may be a callback that most people don't even remember, but it was War Greymon versus Metal Garurumon, and I believe, I forgot the name of the tree, but it's like delusions, right? He was trying to manipulate Metal Garurumon and Matt. Crazy tangent. Let's get back to One Piece. Cobra almost started pleading for his life, saying, I take it, I can't tell a lie that'll make me escape, right? Like he understood his fate in that moment. I was like, bro, your fate was sealed as soon as you were walking and you saw Imu, brother. Everything after that they tell you, it doesn't matter, which is somewhat plot related, where Imu said, I'm not gonna answer who I am because it doesn't matter if you answer because Cobra's gonna die. But Oda doesn't want us to know about that exposition yet, and he's kind of keeping it close to the vest. Oda, why you sneaky bastard? I don't like downing observation hockey, right? Because it's something that exists in the world of One Piece. It works when it works, but it's something that's not passive. I think that's a misconception. And sometimes I get caught in that issue, that mix, where I sometimes look at observation hockey as a passive ability. I think Katakuri for a while swayed my thinking about observation because his, for the most part, was always active. So when I see someone like Sabo just standing there listening to this conversation with the Gorosei and Cobra and Imu, and they don't realize he's there, I'm like, why? It's an active thing that you have to always, you have to use. Kaido didn't actively use Future Sight until he wanted to. Luffy got blindsided by Speed and Gazelle Man. Like these things, it has to be used. Katakuri is a different case because he was always using it, which speaks to how much he's, okay, I'm not gonna, okay. Anyway, Cobra doubled down after he realized he was gonna die anyway. Then he talks about the letter signed by Queen Nefertari D. Lily. The D in this instance, I don't think it means what it's defined to mean, but we'll talk about it. I'm jumping the gun a little bit. We'll talk about it. We saw Imu's power in this chapter, and it's reminiscent to Pride from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, or Full Metal Alchemist, where Pride is somewhat a shape-shifting demon, and he can basically shift and change shapes into anything that he so pleases. Now, I looked a bit into shapeshifters in mythology. They said a berserker, the different water spirits, different demons, etc., even cats that's lived forever for a long time, and the cats, they're transformed into shape-shifting demons. We got to do a bit more research in regards to what Imu's power could be, but 100% Imu-sama is a shapeshifter. And I don't even know that if that's the only ability he has, but that is indeed one of them that had the speed to impale someone like Sabo and impaled Cobra. And the tail is a giveaway for me, where it could be either shapeshifter or Imu literally has the devil fruit. Do you understand that? He has the devil fruit. The devil no me, meaning he has the devil fruit, which would be fitting going against Luffy with this mythical god fruit. Would be perfect. And again, with Imu being a shape-shifting demon, going against a shape-shifting god in Luffy, you can basically create anything, and Imu can shift to match that. And again, if Imu also has the ability to control, which I think could be Zunisha, and demand, that's why the Gorosei is so subservient, because Imu has that ability. It could really be a very interesting fight where the antithesis of each going against each other. It is a beautiful thing when you think about it. Truly. All right? I think the thing that's going to be the most discussed in this chapter is the fact that Sabo came in through a fire fist and attacked all the Gorosei, and they just withered away into something. They all transformed into, I'm going to assume, different forms of mythical Zoans. We could try to surmise the order based on the Gorosei that we see and how they were, and the order we see once they're transformed, and say those are the people. But we see someone who transformed who looks like Onigashima. We see the transformation of Gandhi seemingly, and he has the sash of an awakened Zoan, which we see in another panel. His foot looks a bit disfigured. So like all these people, I'm gonna assume they're Zoans or they have a strange abilities, but the Gorosei are confirmed to all be ability users. Now, this is not something that I expected. I expected a couple of them, not all of them. They're all ability users, and they all somewhat represent, could be different major forms of mythology in the One Piece world. Some were saying this represents the crest of the Kozuki. This represents Onigashima. What is next in regards to representation? But in regards to the Gorosei, they will have the best of the best. That's just how it works. We'll talk about exactly their forms and what we think they are in another video, because oh my God, this is incredible. But Sabo comes in and Sabo is so reckless and relentless. It's like he knows he's an ace filler. Okay, that's disrespectful. It's like he knows that he is plot protected, because Sabo went into the lion's den himself against someone who has seemingly unbelievable power with 5 other ability users, and he got out of there with seemingly a scratch, because he went back to Kamabaka Kingdom and he was walking and talking fine, unless he was, pretending. Walking and talking fine. For some people, when I was reacting to the chapter, they were saying, I don't know how I feel about Sabo escaping, because he was there. He was in the lion's den. He saw Imu. He attacked Imu and they let him leave? How? Well, Sabo can't get captured, because then that erases the Flame Emperor stuff. This is a flashback, remember? And he cannot get captured, because obviously these events already occurred and we know he didn't get captured, but he cannot for the purposes of the story as well. Doesn't matter what he did, but he can't. About Cobra's words about we are all Ds. We also are Ds. The moniker D has a meaning and a definition. Definition aside, let's talk about the meaning. I think Oda in this chapter is literally telling us that the D is not necessarily about what it stands for, but what it means to people, what it means to the world government. And I think the D is anti-establishment, anti-slavery, anti-persecution, anti-one ruler. The D in this case, I don't think Vivi and them are necessarily Ds. I don't think that's what it means. They share the moniker D because they are anti-Imu and the Gorosei, because they are also enemies of the Gorosei. They are also carrying the will of people that were opposing the world government. That's what the D means in this instance. Doesn't matter, dawn, departure, demon, doesn't matter. What does it mean to the people that carry that will? That's what the D means. Anyone can be a D. Oda drove that point home by saying Sa-D-Bo. Sabo isn't a D, but what he represents, what he stands for, everything he is, the fiber of his being is that of a D, because the D is anti-them. It's a beautiful thing because it brings people closer together and it's a rallying cry. Like Cobra was saying, you fly that flag. You do what you need to do, because when Bello Betty pulls up to that final war, Sabo now has more to fight for. Shout out to King Cobra because he went out like a G, or in this instance, I should say, he went out like a D. He sacrificed himself for the greater good, understanding that Sabo had to live. Fly that flag of the world's eventual dawn. For him saying that means that he understands as well about the dawn, meaning that letter that Lily wrote more than likely talked about the dawn, talked about his time, his moment of sacrifice. Pedro isn't a D, but he carries on that will, so therefore, how he lived, he's a D. Odin, he isn't a D, but how he lived, how he died, he is a D for all intents and purposes. That's what it means. It's not about literally D Odin, Sa-D-Bo. How'd you live? How'd you die? What do you represent? What do you stand for? It's a way of life. It's a meaning. All that is important to the world. And I think this will be a rallying cry where more people are going to take on that mantle saying, I'm a D too, because the D is going to be almost like in Wano, that crest, that secret crest that everyone had, knowing that they were on the same side of liberation. This D initial is going to become bigger and much more important than the world government even fathom at this point. Scary, but it's so beautiful. In the midst of all this, there is some comic relief because Wapol found the only hole that's to the throne room, which I'm like, are they running out of money? Why is there a hole there? Unless he made it himself, why is there a hole that Wapol can look through? Again, it has the feel of FMAB when you see everything with Father and just seeing the dastardly deeds of the world, seeing things that scary, seeing the Gorosei and Emu and everything talk about. Bro, I would be terrified. I don't want to go to a meeting after that. I don't even talk about the meeting with the kings and talking about the liberation or just the provinces in the north. Their nation's calling for independence, and I think that's, of course, led to probably the liberation by the revolutionaries. That this is them talking about these four countries asking for their independence, which, I mean, that's never going to fly with the world government. But then, you know, they did their thing. Now, Vivi, she's kidnapped by two of our faves. Well, not two of our faves, more than two, but we see two of our faves in the forefront, Jabra and Khalifa. And Khalifa's looking mighty nice. But we see two of our faves, and they're basically saying that Vivi is going to be made a pet. She's kidnapped. Like, you're a pawn. You're not a big name in this. And they couldn't be more wrong. But Vivi, in the midst of it, she's worried about someone like Shirahoshi. Which again, I think for the D clan, sacrifice and care, it's something that's natural to the people that are true Ds, but they're willing to sacrifice. And they sacrifice with a smile. They understand and they care about others. But that's not the end of the explosive things in this chapter, because as well, we got some agenda piece going on, right? Not only agenda piece, but we got to discuss some slander that's been thrown about in the community about a certain group, a certain faction. And it's time for us to rise up like the D clan, okay? For us to mean something. And this is the A clan, the Admiral clan. I am sick of you. Not the Admiral clan, the anti-admirals. How many times does Oda have to throw in your face that the admirals are incompetent, strong beings for you to respect them? I admit they're an incompetent, just stupid group, but they're strong. And now, I'll say it here. When you mention a few good men, Lindbergh, Karasu, Morley, Sabo, put Fujitora on that list, because this man is an imposter and he was sabotaging this movement from the beginning. Fujitora's goal had nothing to do with what Greenbull wanted. Greenbull was so careful. Here's what I think. I think Fujitora knew that the meteors would destroy Marijoa. That was part of his plan. Let me bring down some meteors just to clear this out. Nigga, what do you think is gonna happen? Oh, didn't know that. That's why Akainu said no excuses, because Fujitora and Greenbull were fighting each other. You know where Fujitora got the vengeance from? Greenbull. Sabo didn't even fight the Admiral. What an interesting development. What an interesting development. I agree with Akainu. No excuses, because the regardless of what happened, they still escaped, still got slaves. And of course they would. Fujitora was helping them. I did throw that out there as a troll years ago when we found out that happened, or probably years ago at this point. I didn't believe it. I was like, Fujitora, I would try to find that. Sweet, sweet vindication. It doesn't excuse the outcome, but with context, all the power scaling BS, like I said, nothing changes within that. Just gotta just chalk it up to big brogs, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, Vivi's now with Wapo. She escaped with them. The Admirals are a dysfunctional group that needs help. They need to cut Fujitora loose immediately. I don't know how he's still an Admiral. He is an op. He is anti-WG, but they need him. They just lost Aokiji. They're reeling. They can't afford to lose an Admiral. So it's kind of like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If Fujitora is actually our enemy, that'd be more problems than ever. So we kind of have to sacrifice and deal with whatever comes with it. Because Fujitora does want the world to be better. He's anti-pirate, I guess, but he's also a good person. So what the hell? What was this chapter? Guys, subscribe, like, much more to come, because I gotta have conversations. I just want to talk. I'm coming.